Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, things just don't work out? That the more you try to control everything around you, the more life seems to slip through your fingers? If this sounds familiar, take a deep breath, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. We live in a culture that glorifies effort, control, and conquest at any cost. We're taught to chase, to push, to win by force. But what if I told you that this constant urge to force, to want to control every detail, is precisely what's keeping you from the peace you so desperately seek? What if true power lies not in control, but in trust? Alan Watts, one of the great interpreters of Eastern philosophy for the Western world, brings to light a profoundly transformative Taoist concept, Wu Wei, the art of not forcing. But make no mistake, Wu Wei has nothing to do with passivity or giving up. On the contrary, it's an ancient wisdom that invites us to act in tune with the flow of life, rather than fighting against it. When you try to control everything, you create tension. When you fixate on a specific outcome, you generate anxiety. When you push a situation that clearly resists, you wear yourself out. And it's in this cycle of frustration and exhaustion that many get lost, believing they're fighting for their dreams, when in reality, they're just going against the very river of existence. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt that the more you persist, the more tired you become, and the less results you see? Maybe it's time to try a different approach, one that's lighter, wiser, more in tune with the natural rhythm of life. Wu Wei teaches us to observe, to listen, to understand when it's time to act, and when it's time to allow. It's a way of living in harmony with reality, not at war with it. It's like water that, faced with a rock, doesn't try to destroy it. It simply flows around it, following its path. Water never fights with a rock, but always finds a way. And here's an invitation. What if you started trusting more? Trusting yourself, trusting the timing of things, trusting the wisdom of the path. Because believe me, something powerful happens when you stop forcing things and start flowing. Stay with me until the end, because in the next sections you'll understand how to apply this philosophy to your daily life in a practical way, transforming the way you deal with challenges, goals, and even your own mind. You'll realize that what seemed like a battle can actually become a dance. And believe me, this can change everything. But perhaps you're wondering, okay, trusting more, but how do I do that in a world that demands results from me all the time? The truth is, this conscious detachment, this intelligent surrender that Wu Wei proposes, doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and like every true process, it begins within. You begin to realize that peace isn't about winning every battle, but about choosing which ones are truly worth your energy, that not everything needs to be rushed, that not every path needs to be conquered with sweat on your brow and tension in your shoulders. Sometimes it's just a matter of breathing, observing, and waiting for the right moment to act. And believe me, that moment always comes. Alan Watts talked a lot about this, the idea that the universe has its own movement, and that we are part of it. When we disconnect from this flow, we feel lost, anxious, overwhelmed. But when we learn to trust, something changes. Life begins to cooperate. Doors open almost silently. You no longer need to break anything in. You enter through the right door, at the right time. And if this kind of reflection resonates with you, if you feel ready to start living with more lightness, more awareness, and less resistance, I invite you to subscribe to the channel now. This shows me that you want to continue walking this path, one that seeks more than ready-made formulas, understanding, truth, and real transformation. With each new video, we'll delve deeper into ideas like this, which not only inspire, but also liberate. Because life doesn't have to be this constant struggle. It can be a dance, remember? And speaking of dance, in the next section, I'll show you how to start applying Wu Wei in a practical way, even on the most chaotic days. Because trust isn't about settling, it's about knowing when to move forward gently, and when to just let go. The truth is, we grew up believing that the harder we run, the faster we'll get there. That if we're not constantly busy, we're falling behind. And that the only way to achieve something great is by suffering, persisting, and exhausting ourselves until the last drop of energy. But look around. How many people live like this and remain frustrated, exhausted, trapped in a cycle of effort and pressure that seems to lead nowhere? There's a hidden truth here that no one teaches in schools or traditional motivational talks. Acting with purpose does not require anxiety. It requires awareness. Alan Watts reminds us through Wu Wei that you can work hard, but you don't have to suffer in the process. Constant suffering, the kind that comes from an attachment to control and an obsession with results, is not noble. It's unnecessary. And often it's even a symptom of misalignment, because when you're truly connected to what you do, when you're in flow with life, things flow more easily. Action becomes natural. Effort, though present, comes with pleasure, with meaning, and that changes everything. See, there's a stark difference between discipline and desperation. Many people hide behind discipline as if it were a shield, but deep down, they're just afraid of failing, afraid of not being recognized, afraid of being forgotten. And that's where anxiety comes in. When we do things not because we believe in them, but because we need to prove something, to someone, to the world, or to ourselves. But Wu Wei shows us something revolutionary. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. A flower blooms because it is in its nature to do so, not to impress the garden, not to receive applause. It simply is, and in being, it fulfills its purpose perfectly. Now tell me, how many times have you caught yourself trying to show your worth, trying to be more, seem more, achieve more, just to feel worthy? That's not purpose, that's prison. Because as long as you constantly try to fit into an idea of success that isn't yours, you'll continue to stray from your true path. You'll act in haste, with guilt, with pressure. You'll compare yourself, get frustrated, and burn out. But the craziest thing is that when you let go of this need to prove, to always win, to be one step ahead, the results start to appear. And not magically but consistently. Because the fruits come when you stop digging the earth all the time. Obsession creates blockage. Excessive expectations stifle the process. It's like checking your watch every minute and wondering why it's taking so long to tick. It's pointless and exhausting. Flowing doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean sitting back and waiting for the universe to solve everything for you. It's the opposite. Flowing means choosing wisely. It means having the courage to stop when necessary, taking a deep breath before reacting, waiting for the right time, even when the rush outside screams. It's like dancing. You don't force the steps, you feel the rhythm. Sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it slows down, but always in tune with the music. And music here is life. Wu Wei teaches a motivation that comes not from scarcity, but from abundance. A silent motivation that doesn't need to be shown, because it lives within you. It is the motivation of Tao, of the path, of alignment. When you act from this place, you don't have to run against the tide, because as the phrase says, the tide rises by itself. Your mission is to be in the right boat, and this isn't just beautiful, it's profoundly liberating. It means your mission isn't to control the tide. It isn't to speed up time. It isn't to prove anything to anyone. Your mission is to be where you need to be, to do what needs to be done, with intention, but without tension, with commitment, but without attachment, with courage, but without despair. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because when you understand this balance between action and confidence, between presence and purpose, everything changes. The way you decide, how you position yourself, how you experience each stage of your journey, undergoes a real transformation, and the impact this has on your results, and even more so, on your well-being, is enormous. And when we begin to walk this new way of living, more conscious, lighter, more connected to what matters, something inside us changes too. It's not just the external world that begins to respond differently. The way you see changes, the way you deal with time, your decisions, your mistakes, and even your deepest desires. Everything takes on a different texture, a different frequency. It's as if, when you let go of control, you discover that true mastery lies precisely in not having to control everything. That true strength lies in knowing when to move forward and when to retreat. Because yes, sometimes the strongest are those who know when to stop. those who understand that rigidity only breaks, but flexibility, that adapts, flows, reinvents itself. This is the point where you begin to realize you're not here to run an invisible race with others. You're not behind. You're not falling short. You're on your path. And if that path sometimes seems slower or quieter than others, that's okay, because it's yours, and it has a time that's uniquely yours. Comparison, from this perspective, simply loses its meaning, because you understand that every journey has its own twists, its own rhythms, its own twists and turns, and this awareness changes the way you act. Because now every action you take comes from a clearer, cleaner place. You're no longer doing it out of fear of loss. You're doing it because it makes sense, because it's aligned with who you are, not what others expect you to be. You know that weight you feel like you carry on your shoulders all the time? That feeling like there's always something missing? It starts to disappear, not because you have everything, but because you stopped fighting what already exists inside you. You've begun to trust, to respect your own time, to listen to what your inner truth has to say without drowning it out with the noise of the outside world. That's precisely where the balance between intention and surrender arises. You act, yes, but with lightness, with emotional strategy, with wisdom. Wu Wei isn't about omitting yourself from life. It's about live intelligently. It's about saving energy where it's not worth wasting, and focusing on where the impact is real. It's about doing what's essential with excellence, not doing the maximum with exhaustion. This generates a silent but profound transformation, a peace that isn't passive, it's powerful, because it arises from clarity, from the coherence between what you feel and what you do. It's when doing aligns with being, and this has a huge impact, not only on your results, but on your mental health, your relationships, your creativity, and your level of presence in the present moment. And then comes something even more curious. When you start acting like this, the results that once seemed so distant begin to come to you, not by magic, but by attunement, because now you are aligned with the movement of life, not fighting against it. And life, when it senses this true surrender, responds. But there's a detail here that few people talk about. This surrender doesn't mean an absence of action. It means action, without obsession. It's about doing what needs to be done, but without getting lost in the process, without dissolving into expectations. It's about being fully on the path even without knowing exactly where it will lead. And that requires courage. It requires presence. It requires trust in something greater, not as an empty belief, but as aerial inner experience. Now tell me, how many times have you sabotaged a result by obsessing too much about it? Have you tried so hard to control, predict, force, that you ended up tiring out prematurely? This is more common than it seems, because obsession creates blockages. Excessive willpower can become resistance, and then what should flow stops. That's why Wu Wei is so necessary, especially for those who live on autopilot, doing it all the time. It reminds us that action without peace does not sustain lasting results, that purpose without balance becomes pressure, and that no success is worth the loss of your own connection. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because when you start living by this wisdom, even your idea of success transforms. What you seek changes, what you tolerate changes, and what you consider essential gains a new light. Let's understand together how all this fits practically into your routine, into your daily decisions, and how this new mindset can redefine the way you live your now. And it is precisely in your now that it all begins. It's not after everything is perfect, nor when all the plans are ready. It's in the silence between one decision and another. The moment you choose not to react impulsively, but to act with intention. When you choose, don't speed up just because you're anxious, but rather move because you feel the time has come. This is the power of those who have learned to listen to themselves. And this perhaps is one of the most neglected skills of our time. We've learned to listen to the world, to pursue external goals, to chase what others say is success. But when was the last time you actually listened to what your body, your intuition, your energy were saying? Wu Wei, when well understood, gives us back this listening. And this goes far beyond a philosophical concept. It has a real impact on your routine, your results, and your emotional health. How many times have you forced yourself to continue a project that no longer made sense, just because you couldn't stop, or insisted on maintaining an image, a pattern, a rhythm that was consuming you, just to appear successful to those who don't even know what's behind the scenes? That's where the invisible wear and tear lies. Effort disguised as discipline. The constant struggle that seems noble but inside is empty, because without realizing it, you begin to live on the autopilot of those who act out of fear, not clarity. Those who live to please, not to achieve. Those who act to survive but have forgotten to live. And then comes Wu Wei with his courageous simplicity and says, don't force it, feel it. Don't push it, flow it. Not as an excuse for inaction, but as a path to awareness. Because when you start acting from a place of truth, each step stops being a burden and becomes a movement aligned with who you truly are. But this requires something that few people want to face. Break, pause to reflect, to listen, to adjust, to realize if what you're doing is truly yours, or just a reflection of what's expected of you. Pausing isn't wasting time, it's finding direction. Because when you lose yourself, you might even walk fast, but you'll fall far short of what's good for you. And it's in this pause that the most accurate decisions are born. Not the loudest ones, but the most honest ones. Because there, in the silence of your own truth, you begin to realize what needs to continue, and what can be let go, what is pointless insistence, and what is aligned persistence. You begin to differentiate between noise and signal, what is real will, and what is just vanity disguised as a goal. That's when you understand that true motivation doesn't shout, it whispers, and you only listen when you silence the excess. It's this motivation that comes from the Tao, from alignment with the flow of life. The motivation that doesn't need a stage or validation, that doesn't need to be in front of anyone, because it knows the right time exists, and that it will come. That understands that the tide will rise. Its only mission is to be in the right boat, with sails raised and a heart at peace. And the right boat here is your purpose. It's the action that makes sense. It's the choice that brings you closer to yourself. When you're in this boat, everything changes. What motivates you stops being pressure and becomes truth. What moves you stops being fear and becomes direction. And what fuels you is no longer anxiety about the next step, but presence in the present. But this journey isn't linear. Sometimes the flow will ask you to stop. Other times, it will push you to act. And you need to be present enough to notice the difference. Because wisdom lies right there. Not to cling to haste, but also not to hide in comfort, knowing when to take a step and when to just watch. And it all starts with a simple shift in perspective. Stop forcing and start trusting. Not trusting in the passive, blind sense, but in the active sense of those who choose to be awake, of those who move with presence, of those who understand that life is not a struggle, but a dance. And like all dance, it requires rhythm, surrender, and above all, listening. So, if you've come this far feeling like something clicked, that something inside you was touched even if only subtly, know this. This is Wu Wei manifesting. It's the beginning of a silent yet powerful shift. A turning point that can transform the way you live, work, relate, and even dream. If you felt this message touched something deep inside you, that this content brought you clarity, relief, or even a new way of looking at your own journey, then it was worth being here with you. This space is for just that, for us to take a deep breath, question the excess, and reconnect with what truly matters. If this kind of conversation resonates with you, subscribe to our channel. We always delve into topics that help you live with greater presence, lightness, and purpose. No magic formulas, just the real thing. And if you got this far, comment below. I'm with you until the end, just so I know you walked with me through this whole video. It's so good to feel this exchange. Oh, and if this content touched you in any way, please leave a like. This shows me that it's worth continuing to share reflections like this, and it also helps this video reach those who might need to hear exactly this right now. There's a video right here that complements everything we talked about today. Click and continue with me there. The conversation is just beginning.